products of a multi-billion-dollar industry. It started out making cures for what ailed you. Mass-produced and microbrewed.
We're the only people commercially who brew a soda that old-fashioned way. That's our claim to fame.
A tiny seed gives some of them more than twice the caffeine boost of a cup of coffee. While the key to formulating others is sending sweat through a centrifuge. It's time to twist your top, pour a glass, and chill out. Now, soft drinks on Modern Marvels. As energy drinks in the bar scene continue to raise concerns, this brewery makes a beer even a child could drink. This microbrewery in Los Angeles contains equipment normally used to make beer. But you won't smell any hops or barley here, only ginger. This is where Chris Reed makes his version of ginger ale, using principles dating back more than 2 centuries.
This is where it starts. Our company makes ginger ale from real ginger, and we use about 1.5 million pounds a year of fresh ginger. The average bottle will have anywhere from 8 grams to 25 grams of ginger. This batch here will be for about 700 cases, and we'll use about 700 pounds. So we use approximately a pound per case. That's a lot of ginger.
Fresh ginger, spices, and a whole lot of water go into this 1,000-gallon steam-jacketed brewing kettle.
It's actually 2 kettles. On the outside of the inner kettle is steam, and that heats up the water. So we're actually boiling water in there, and we're throwing the roots right into the boiling water.
Large rotating paddles mix the ginger-infused liquid. Once brewed, it's strained through a perforated false bottom, then piped into a separate kettle. Here, brewers mix in sweeteners and natural flavors. Chilled to 34 degrees Fahrenheit, the mixture marinates for a few days before reaching the final step in the brewing process, carbonation. Chris uses a centuries-old carbonation process, still used in the craft beer industry. A small micropore rod slowly feeds CO2 into the 1,800-gallon holding tank.
A modern soda plant will run it in a split second in a very high-tech piece of equipment. This takes me 12 hours to carbonate, but it produces a very small champagne-like carbonation, which is, for the aficionado, a superior carbonation. So when we're done, this is like a huge bottle of soda.
After pasteurization, 2,000 champagne-style bottles of ginger ale per hour are bottled, labeled, and boxed.
So this is a very big version of the way it was made maybe in the 1800s or the 1700s. And of course, we're the only people commercially who brew a soda that old-fashioned way. That's our claim to fame.
Before commercialization and high-tech carbonation, soft drinks were the products of home brewers.
Before they had fancy bottling plants to bottle it up and add carbonation, they would brew up their roots, and then they would add sugar to sweeten it, and then they would add yeast, and they would bottle it. The yeast is in the bottle, eating the sugars, giving off CO2. So it's great for carbonation, but it's also doing what it does in beer, which is produce alcohol. So your early soft drinks were slightly alcoholic.
Well before brewers were making bubbles, ginger's medicinal properties were known and used.
Ginger has a huge health history. The Greeks and the Romans, known for their overeating habits, they would use ginger as the Alka-Seltzer. So it has quite a tradition of helping people with digestive problems.
Another root thought to have medicinal properties comes from the sassafras tree, and eventually became the basis for another iconic soft drink, root beer. For centuries, Native Americans brewed its roots into their own brand of tonic. The root tonic was eventually commercialized in 1876 in Philadelphia, site of America's first World's Fair. There, pharmacist Charles Hyers introduced his blend of root-spiced tea to the paying public. Root beer became an increasingly popular soft drink flavor until 1960, when the FDA banned the use of root beer's key ingredient, sassafras, labeling it a potential carcinogen.
The sassafras root that had all the health benefits had an oil called safrole. The problem with safrole was that if they fed it to a rat in an experiment, it could get cancer. Maybe the cola guys were trying to get the root beer guys who were getting very popular and trying to derail them with this. No one will know for sure.
After the ban, most root beer makers began developing artificial flavors to match the distinct taste of sassafras. Today, a few companies, including Hansen's, uses safrole-free sassafras extract. How does the taste of Hansen's root beer stack up?
It's not bad. I think it's going for the more generic root beer taste, but it's tasty, very foamy. It's got a good creamy texture. It works well as a float.
Anthony Shore has been reviewing root beer online since 1996. He's among a growing number of root beer aficionados who enjoy exploring and savoring the nuances of this unique soft drink.
I've reviewed, I think it's 377 root beers, birch beers, sarsaparillas. Just root beers, I think, is 250 something. For me, the root beer tasting, it's similar to tasting a fine wine. This will be my first taste of this soda. This is actually a butterscotch root beer. See how that first taste is, that first sip? Small head, but it's very creamy and sweet anyway. I like it. Rating-wise, this might be a little overly sweet, maybe a 81 out of my scale of 1 to 100.
Chris Reed is a root beer lover too. Topping his list is Virgil's, a company which Chris purchased from the previous owner in 1999. Since then, he's come up with his own unique recipe for microbrewed root beer.
We're somewhere halfway between those really hardcore root beers than a commercial root beer. We're using nutmeg, and this is the whole nutmeg. Generally, it's ground. Then we use cloves, the star anise, that comes from Spain. We use the cinnamon sticks. Cinnamon comes originally from Ceylon. We also use the vanilla beans. We like to use the Madagascar vanilla beans. Licorice comes from France. And then wintergreen, very large part of root beer. Almost every root beer has it in America. Molasses. It's a sweetener, but it has a lot of health properties, and it's a wonderful flavor, too.
When it comes to packaging, Virgil's tries to give the consumer a true root beer experience. Long neck bottles, a party keg, and for those willing to pay a few extra bucks,
we convinced a brewery in southern Germany to make it with the Grolsch swing lid. That's a porcelain swing top. And this is probably, by aficionados, considered the ultimate root beer.
Whether it's his own ginger brew or Virgil's, Chris has one simple rule when consuming his beverages.
Do you serve them over ice? Absolutely not. They were built perfectly the way they were. They're not to be diluted with ice. So it's for us, when we serve up these sodas, we do it with attitude.